Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My two childhood sweethearts are heartthrobs, and I look completely average. On the day they confessed to the beautiful student from a poor family, everyone turned to look at me, and at the pink envelope I was clutching tightly in my hand, with the kind of eyes that expected drama. Fabian shoved his hands in his pockets and said indifferently, "You're too ordinary. I don't feel anything for you." Romeo looked at me innocently and added, "Sorry if my brother isn't interested in someone, then neither am I." My steps faltered for a moment, but I quickly passed them without changing my expression. I handed the pink envelope to that poor student. Meeting the stiff expressions on both their faces, I tilted my head and asked in confusion, "Exactly what kind of wishful thinking are you two caught up in?" Chapter 1. After carefully evening out my lipstick in front of the mirror, I pressed my lips together and let out a long breath. My makeup today was perfect. I was sure Fabian and Romeo would like it. I glanced casually at my watch, only to realize it had been half an hour since school ended. Strange. Why hadn't Fabian and Romeo come to find me yet? Their teacher might like to run overtime, but never this late. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and easily found my way to their classroom. Peeking through the window, inside, my sweet smile froze almost instantly at the corners of my lips. There weren't many people in the room, so I could clearly see it. A girl with a high ponytail was sitting between Fabian and Romeo, explaining a problem to them. I knew her. Katerina, the top student the school had spent heavily to recruit. On her very first day here, a candid side profile shot of her had gone viral on the school forum, and many had privately voted her the school beauty. At this moment, I didn't know what Katerina had just said, but the usually cold and taciturn Fabian actually let out a quiet laugh. Resting his chin in one hand, he lazily looked at Katerina and said, "You're amazing." The cheerful and lively Romeo even made a heart gesture and praised her. How did I not think of that? Inequality, Katerina, you're way too smart. Warm sunlight bathed them like a serene oil painting, beautiful and harmonious. But to me it was nothing but blinding. Chapter 2. Knock knock. I tapped on the classroom door, trying to keep my tone as casual as possible. "Not heading back yet? I'm getting a little hungry." The sound of her explaining the problem was cut short. Both of my childhood sweethearts looked up at me at the same time. A flicker of displeasure passed over Fabian's handsome face. Romeo glanced at his brother, then got up and pulled me into the hallway. Smiling, he explained, "Violet, don't get the wrong idea. My brother's just asking Katerina for help with a problem. After all, she just transferred here and already surpassed both me and my brother to take first place in the grade. Did asking for help require sitting that close?" I hesitated for a moment, then finally said listlessly, "So how much longer will you be?" Romeo didn't answer my question directly. He leaned down, studying me carefully for a few seconds before suddenly speaking. "Your makeup's too heavy today. My brother won't like it." I froze for a moment, a little nervous as I pulled out my mirror. Looking back at me was an overly elaborate, heavy makeup look. In the background was Katerina's clear, pleasant voice explaining the problem. Something so difficult I couldn't understand a single word. Was it really ugly? Just as I was staring blankly into the mirror, Katerina suddenly stood up and began packing her bag. Fabian frowned. "Not going to continue?" Romeo half complained, half pleaded. "Katerina, you're not in a hurry to go home, right? You can keep going." Katerina paused. Just when I thought she was going to sit back down and continue, she said, "But I am in a hurry to go home." Lifting her back, her tone turned cold. "If you have questions, you should go to the teacher, not keep asking me endlessly." With that, she turned to leave. Katerina hadn't looked at me even once from start to finish. But as she walked out the front door of the classroom, she shifted slightly to the side so she wouldn't touch me. Ironically, it was Romeo chasing after her who nearly knocked the mirror out of my hands. I frowned and followed after them. Chapter 3. Honestly, I thought that after Katerina snapped at them, they'd be upset. Especially Fabian. No one knew better than me just how proud he was. But to my surprise, my two childhood sweethearts simply followed behind her at a steady distance. Like two knights dedicated to protecting their princess. "Bro, she's really amazing." She was practically glowing while explaining the problem. So charming. From childhood until now, this is the first time I've been beaten by a girl. This feeling is so new I was speechless. Romeo rambled on, then finally asked hesitantly, "Bro, don't you agree?" Fabian Jean gave a faint I listened in silence, feeling deeply unsettled. Once we got into the Jean family's chauffeured car, I glanced out the window and saw Katerina helping her mother pack up their stall. Katerina was a poor student. I tried giving it to her earlier, but she didn't want it. My brother got annoyed, so he threw it away. My head buzzed, unable to process it. She refused you, so you think it's fine to trample on my effort? Fabian's expression darkened and he said inexplicably, "We couldn't finish it, so why not throw it away? Do you really think your sandwiches are that good?" Romeo chimed in to back up his brother. "Violet, why are you being so petty? If you give us something, are you expecting to take it back? And I've been meaning to say you only ever make the same few kinds of breakfast. My brother and I are sick of them." Hearing that, my face flushed red with anger. But I didn't know how to refute them, so I could only push Romeo away and run out of the classroom in embarrassment. Chapter 5. I ran all the way to the artificial lake in one breath. Panting, I came to a stop. Just then a familiar female voice reached my ears. Looking up, I saw Katerina standing under a tree, earnestly reciting English vocabulary. Today, she wasn't wearing her usual high ponytail. Instead, her jet black hair was casually clipped back behind her ears. From my angle, I could see her sharp chin and the sweep of her long lashes when she looked down. It was strange. She was wearing the plainest school uniform, yet there was something about her that made it impossible to look away. I pursed my lips and was about to quietly slip away when a few faint meows caught my attention. Two round, chubby ginger cats had appeared from who knows where and were circling around the hem of Katerina's pants. She closed her notebook, squatted down, stroked the head of one of the ginger cats and said gently, "Little ones, you've got the wrong person. I don't have any food for you." The ginger cat seemed to understand, letting out a few dissatisfied whimpers. So cute. Watching this, I couldn't help but walk over almost without thinking. Handing Katerina my sandwich, I said softly, "I have some extra food here." Katerina froze for a second, but soon she accepted the sandwich and politely thanked me. Chapter 6. Katerina tore the sandwich into crumbs of bread and handed a small portion to me. We silently fed the cats together like that. "Is there something on my face?" Katerina tilted her head to look at me, her pale, glass-like eyes filled with curiosity. "Why do you keep turning to look at me?" Caught in the act, my ears burned and in the end I admitted honestly, "Because you're very pretty." Katerina clearly hadn't expected that answer. The corners of her lips curved. "Thank you. You're very pretty too." Even though I knew Katerina was probably just being polite, her gaze was so sincere that I couldn't help feeling my face grow warm. I gave a light cough to change the subject. "No wonder they all like you. You really are special." Katerina looked a little puzzled. She seemed to think of something, and her expression suddenly turned a bit complicated. "If you don't mind me asking, do you like one of the Jean twins?" My girlish secret had just been laid bare. I stammered for a long moment, unsure how to respond. After all, my feelings for Fabian Jean were practically common knowledge at school. Could Katerina be taking this as some kind of love rival provocation? "I don't think you should invest so much of your feelings in them." She seemed to be choosing her words carefully, speaking slowly. Just when I thought Katerina was about to warn me to stay away from Fabian and Romeo, she lifted the rest of the sandwich in her hand, her expression turning a little cold. "You know, this morning Romeo gave me this and said it was a breakfast he had carefully made just for me. If I'm not mistaken, you made this especially for them, didn't you?" To be honest, I think their so-called affection is cheap. This kind of gesture doesn't just disrespect me, it disrespects your effort. They've let down your feelings. Even after lunch, Katerina's words kept drifting through my mind. Even a transfer student like her could see how the Jean twins disregarded me. Was there really any point in clinging to this so-called childhood sweetheart bond anymore? I looked at myself in the mirror again and again. In the end, I picked up the makeup remover and wiped away all the heavy layers of makeup. All because of a joke Romeo had made 2 years ago. "My brother likes pretty girls. Violet, you probably don't stand a chance, ha ha ha." From that day on, I wore makeup year-round, never once letting them see my bare face. But now, I suddenly felt tired. After all, Fabian had never once looked at me differently just because my makeup was flawless. So why was I wasting all this time and energy? Once I'd thought it through, I felt much lighter. That is until I heard that the girls in PE would be running the 800-meter test. In order to lose weight, I'd only eaten some boiled vegetables at lunch. Halfway through the run, I started to feel tightness in my chest, my head swimming. Even so, I pushed myself to finish the whole distance. But the discomfort only grew worse, and I fought to suppress the urge to throw up as I made my way toward the bathroom to splash some water on my face. I didn't make it far before my vision went black and I fell hard to the ground. A long gash opened on my knee, blood welling out. The pain kept me from standing, and I instinctively looked around for help. That's when I met Fabian's cool, indifferent gaze. He was sitting on the steps, watching my disheveled state with complete apathy. Half my heart seemed to turn to ice in that moment. Thankfully, Romeo came over carrying a basketball. Pale-faced, I called to him for help. "Romeo, can you give me a hand?" Romeo bent down slightly, but only pretended to pull me up, never actually applying force. I looked up at him in confusion. He tilted his head, his tone tinged with regret. "Violet, I really want to help you. But you just argued with us this morning. If I suddenly help you like this, my brother will definitely be mad at me." He tugged at the corner of his lips in an unreadable smile. "How about, you apologize to us first?" I stared at Romeo in shock, unable to believe what I just heard. "Because I've been sitting on the ground for too long," murmurs gradually rose around me. "Whoa, who's that on the ground? You don't know Violet from class 3? The one who's always with the Jean twins?" "No way, I thought she was a great beauty." "Ha, with makeup that heavy every day, how could she not look pretty? So this is what she looks like without makeup. Full of freckles, guess pockmark sister. Really lives up to the name. Ha ha ha." More and more malicious stares gathered on me. I broke down inside and covered my face, not wanting to let my vulnerability show. But Romeo still had a smile in his voice as he murmured in my ear. "All it would take is admitting you were wrong to my brother, Violet. You don't have to be so stubborn." An unspeakable fury surged in my chest. With the last of my strength, I shoved him away hard, trying to get up from the ground. But someone beat me to it, pulling me up first. Katerina seemed to have jogged over. There was a sheen of sweat on her forehead. She slung my arm over her shoulder while shooting Romeo a cold glare. Her voice sharp with anger. "Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? Your friend falls down and you can't even help her up." Romeo froze for a moment, then hurriedly waved his hands. "Katerina, you've got it wrong. I was just joking with her." He seemed to care a lot about how Katerina saw him, so he immediately dropped his casual act and spoke to me in a suddenly gentle tone. "Violet, are you hurt? I'll have my brother carry you to the nurse's office, okay?" Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Fabian had come over at some point. He bent down, reaching to take me from Katerina's hold as if assuming I'd agree without question. But why should I? A sudden wave of unfamiliar disgust rose in my heart. I stepped back, letting Fabian's gesture fall into empty air. "No need." I looked up at him, my expression cold, and repeated firmly, "I don't need your fake, hypocritical help." This time it was Fabian and Romeo's turn to be stunned. It was the first time I had ever rejected them so firmly. Romeo, unwilling to give up, reached out to grab my arm, but Katerina blocked him. "Oh, and one more thing." She lifted her eyes slightly, giving Fabian and Romeo a cool, deliberate once-over before saying word by word, "Bullying a girl is really low of you." Chapter 9. On the way to the nurse's office, supported by Katerina, I kept my head down the whole time, not daring to meet her eyes. Noticing this, Katerina spoke softly. "What's wrong? Is your knee hurting badly?" I shook my head without saying a word. The pain in my knee was there, but it was completely bearable. What I feared more was the strange, judgmental stares that had gathered on my face. Katerina stayed silent for a moment. After a while, she said calmly, "If you don't mind, would you like to tell me about it?" I lifted my head to glance at her quickly, then dropped it again immediately, my voice thick with self-consciousness. "I think I'm really ugly." The things those people had just said were like thorns embedded deep in my heart. Especially that malicious pockmark sister, which instantly dredged up unpleasant memories. Back in elementary school, The boys in class had made a beauty ranking of the girls. Because of the freckles all over my face, I was placed last. When they read my name, the entire class erupted in laughter. On the very first day of middle school, a boy pointed at me and said, "So ugly." He even deliberately asked if my face was dirty, if I'd come to school without washing it. Later on, those same freckles made me a target for small group bullying. "What's ugly about you?" Katerina's confused voice cut into my thoughts. She gestured for me to sit on the bed in the nurse's office. Then, lowering her gaze to look at me, she said very seriously, "When you smile, there's a sweet little dimple at the corner of your lips, and your eyes curve like crescent moons. If it's your freckles that trouble you, then I want to tell you, in the eyes of foreigners, freckles are the marks left when an angel kisses you. They mean you're blessed and loved by angels." I stared at her in a daze. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. So, freckles could be a symbol of angels. You're always telling me I'm pretty. But in truth, I've also been harassed and isolated in middle school because of this so-called beauty. Katerina sighed deeply when she gave her own example. I want to say beauty is your right, not your obligation. You shouldn't live inside someone else's value system. Insults are the misfortune of the ignorant. We don't need to apologize for ourselves just because of their gaze. You only need to remember a few words. You are truly wonderful. Before the school nurse came over to check on me, Katerina tucked a few loose strands of hair behind my ear and said gently, "Violet, you are truly wonderful." Chapter 10. Katerina went back to class because I made her go. After she left, I couldn't control myself and began to sob softly. This time it wasn't out of sadness, it was because I was touched. While the school nurse was tending to my wound, I cried so much that my knee trembled. Once the wound was bandaged, the nurse began giving me an 4 drip. As the fluid dripped in, she said earnestly, "Classmate, you must eat properly next time. Don't end up in the nurse's office again because of low blood sugar. If I'm not mistaken, you're skipping meals to lose weight, aren't you? Take some advice from your older sister here, you're in high school. Right now, the most important thing is studying. If you really want to lose weight, you can do it in college. Your health comes first." I nodded seriously. The reason I'd been trying to lose weight was because of a gathering half a year ago. Romeo had lost at Truth or Dare, and his punishment was to carry me while doing 10 squats. He managed to complete the challenge, but when he put me down, he still complained, "Violet, you're way too heavy." I had wanted to retort, to say that at 1.65 meters, I didn't even weigh 100 Gene. But under Fabian's strange gaze, I'd flushed red with embarrassment and couldn't get a word out for a long time. In the end, I secretly resolved to make myself thinner and slimmer. But after what happened today, I completely changed my mind. Just like Katerina had said, beauty is my right, not my obligation. No one is worth me forcing myself to do something I never liked to begin with. The same goes for losing weight or wearing makeup. There are only 4 months left until the college entrance exams. What I should be focusing my energy on now is my studies. Chapter 11. By the time the 4 drip finished, it was already the end of the school day. When I packed my bag and stepped out of the classroom, I saw it was raining outside. And I hadn't brought an umbrella. Just as I was trying to think of a solution, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned to see Romeo holding an umbrella, grinning playfully. "Violet, come walk with us." He shifted slightly to reveal Fabian behind him, also holding an umbrella, his expression calm. I stared at them in silence, but inside I couldn't understand. After what had happened this afternoon, how could they act as if nothing had happened, still inviting me to go home with them? Pressing my lips together, I refused crisply. "No." With that, I turned to leave. But someone suddenly caught my ponytail. Fabian let go, his brows furrowed, his voice low. "Violet, stop throwing a tantrum." "Okay," I looked at him in disbelief. "You think I'm throwing a tantrum?" He gave a short derisive laugh, his gaze icy. "What else? Isn't this just your way of trying to get our attention?" The tension between us was about to boil over when Romeo stepped in to smooth things over. He shot Fabian a disapproving look and grumbled, "Bro, why are you making a fuss with Violet?" Then leaning closer to my ear, he whispered with a conspiratorial smile, "Violet, you're being silly. This is the perfect chance to get close to my brother. I used to love rainy days because they gave me the chance to share an umbrella with Fabian. a legitimate excuse for physical closeness. Fabian would always warn me, sounding annoyed, to bring my own umbrella next time. But when I hooked my arm through his, he never pulled away. In fact, he would quietly tilt the umbrella more to my side. It was these small moments stacked over time that made me fall hopelessly in love with him. But now, as I looked out at the pouring rain, I suddenly realized I didn't like rainy days anymore. So I refused them again. No. Romeo's smile froze. Being turned down twice in a row, both brothers' expressions darkened. Especially Fabian. His brows drew low and he sneered coldly. Forget her. Let her get soaked. I pulled my hood over my head, ready to run straight to the security office to wait out the rain. But out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a familiar figure. Katerina was standing in the hallway, head lowered, looking for her umbrella. My eyes lit up and I jogged over to her side. My original plan had been to straightforwardly ask Katerina, "I forgot my umbrella, can I walk with you?" But when her bright clear eyes turned toward me, I suddenly forgot what I'd meant to say and my voice came out shy. Would it be okay if I shared your umbrella?" Katerina nodded. Of course. She opened the umbrella, turned to look at me and smiled. My umbrella's a bit small, so make sure you stay close to me. With my backpack on, I smiled back at her. Okay, her umbrella really wasn't big. The fine, dense rain drifted in, dampening both our shoulders. But neither of us paid it any mind. We simply quickened our pace in unspoken agreement. When we reached the school gate, her mother was already there waiting. She was a woman who shared about 60% of Katerina's looks. When she saw us, her eyes brightened, and she hobbled toward us under her umbrella. Katerina quickly went to meet her. "Mom, I told you not to come pick me up on rainy days. Why did you still come?" Her mother smiled gently. "I've been limping for so many years now, sweet girl. Why are you still worrying about it?" As she spoke, her gaze suddenly shifted to me. "Katerina, is this your good friend?" Before Katerina could answer, I nodded enthusiastically and greeted, "Hello, Auntie," in a polite tone. It made Katerina's mother beam with delight. Seeing our exchange, Katerina smiled faintly at the side. She seemed to think of something and asked curiously, "Violet, how are you getting home? Do you have a driver picking you up?" Hearing that, I instinctively turned to look for the Jean family's car. My parents are away on business most of the year and rarely come home. For the past 2 years, I'd been catching a ride to and from school with the Jean family. And then to my surprise, I spotted the car parked right next to us. Perhaps noticing my gaze, the previously still car began to shake slightly, as if about to start moving. Romeo's hesitant voice drifted over. "Bro, it's pouring out here. Are we really not waiting for Violet?" At that, Fabian looked down at me from behind the car window, his tone icy. "No." Then, as if intentionally or not, he added, "Her parents don't care about her anyway. Why should we bother? Do you think she'd even appreciate it?" The moment the words left his mouth, the car roared to life and drove off right in front of me. Dirty rainwater nearly splashed all over me. Thankfully, Katerina reacted quickly, raising her umbrella to block it. She had clearly heard Fabian and Romeo's conversation and looked at me with concern. "Violet, are you okay?" I'll admit it. In that instant when the car pulled away, a flicker of fear and confusion passed through my heart. Like I'd suddenly been abandoned. But soon that negativity was replaced by a strange sense of lightness. Staring in the direction Fabian and Romeo had gone, I slowly said, "It's fine. I'll take a taxi home." Katerina's mother and Katerina were both unfailingly gentle and patient. They didn't leave until they saw with their own eyes that I'd gotten into a cab. And as I sat inside the taxi watching the raindrops streak down the glass, I realized I didn't feel lonely at all. Chapter 13. That night I had a dream. In the dream I was being bullied at school because of my looks, and I wanted to go home to tell on them. But the moment I pushed open the door, I heard my parents arguing. In my memories, both of them were always busy with work and rarely came home. Even when they did, it was endless fighting. That's what shaped my submissive nature. I was afraid of raised voices, so whenever I had a disagreement with someone, I was always the first to back down. But this time, unlike every other time before, they were talking about me. My dad shouted angrily, "Every time I come home you start a fight with me. What was I born owing you something? Let's just get a divorce." My mom let out a cold laugh. Fine. The house is mine. The car and the kid go to you. My dad frowned. I'm not close to Violet at all. Why should she go to me? My mom shot back matter-of-factly. What, you want to dump her on me instead? Hearing that, I quietly closed the door and gave up on the idea of asking them for help. The next day at school, the same little clique cornered me again. They demanded I hand over all of my daily allowance. When I flatly refused, they got angry and dragged me into the bushes, beating and kicking me. It was Fabian and Romeo passing by who saved me. Coincidentally, they weren't just my classmates. They had just moved in next door as my new neighbors. To show my gratitude, I put half a month's allowance into an envelope and handed it to them in person. Fabian at first thought it was a love letter and refused me solemnly. I don't date early. Romeo, on the other hand, couldn't resist his curiosity and tore the envelope open on the spot. When he saw the money inside, he looked at me in surprise. Wow bro, she's actually really cute. This is the first time I've gotten pocket money from a girl. I looked up at them cautiously and said carefully, if you like, I can give you the other half month as allowance too, as long as you protect me for the next few days. The truth was, I was terrified that little clique would come after me again. I was no match for them at all. My grades weren't great, and though I told my homeroom teacher about it, he clearly didn't take it seriously. At my words, Fabian and Romeo exchanged a meaningful glance. Romeo was the first to step forward, smiling. You're a pretty interesting girl. How about this, we don't need your money. Just be our obedient little follower, and we'll protect you. Deal. I was a bit stunned. Instinctively, I looked toward Fabian, who seemed more reliable. But to my surprise, he too had his chin lifted slightly, waiting for my answer. The boy's handsome face was quiet, his gaze lowered toward me. My heart skipped, bursting like fireworks. And in a moment of foolishness, I agreed to their terms. Chapter 14. I woke from the dream. Rubbing my hair, I wondered why I'd dreamt of the past. After washing up, I put on my school uniform and went straight to school by taxi. The first thing I saw was Katerina's mother's pancake stall. It was still a bit early at this hour, and there weren't many people at the school gate. When Katerina's mother spotted me, she smiled and waved. I quickly walked over and greeted her with a good morning. She asked, Violet, have you had breakfast yet? I shook my head. And so, with warm enthusiasm, she made me a pancake, the kind loaded with fillings and spread thick with sauce. Holding the warm, weighty pancake, I felt a bit embarrassed and tried to pay her. But she firmly refused to take my money, gently urging me to hurry along to class. My heart felt warm. As I passed Katerina's classroom, I noticed she was already holding a book, reciting classical poetry. The girl wore a clean, neat blue and white school uniform, her profile calm and refined, her ponytail tied high just like the first time I'd met her. I stood in the corner watching her for a while, and for the first time I felt the urge to study seriously. So without greeting her, I lightened my steps and returned to my own classroom. After listening carefully through the entire morning's lessons, my head was swimming, my eyelids heavy with drowsiness. Our homeroom teacher, hoping to boost our morale, handed back the monthly exam papers. I glanced at my less-than-ideal score and felt my head grow even heavier. Chapter 15. After school, I found Katerina and, summoning my courage, asked her about a problem. Katerina patiently explained it to me. At first I could follow along, but when she got to one particular step, my mind hit a blank. I didn't dare ask again because I didn't want to seem stupid. Katerina seemed to notice. She immediately pointed to that step on the scratch paper and asked, Is it this part you didn't understand? I nodded shyly. Katerina pressed her lips into a small smile. If there's something you don't get, you can interrupt me any time. You don't have to feel embarrassed. My eyes welled up as I looked at her. It reminded me of the times I'd asked Fabian and Romeo for help. They'd explain things so quickly that I couldn't keep up, so I'd had to ask again. Romeo had tapped my head with his pen, half joking. Geez, Violet, why are you so dumb? Fabian didn't say it outright, but the way his brows furrowed made his attitude clear. They thought I was dumb, and they thought I was annoying. Ever since then, I'd had a deep-seated fear of asking people for help. But today Katerina broke that fear. She was just like Fabian, cool and quiet in personality. Yet with her I never felt uncomfortable. Instead, I felt completely respected. Just as I was feeling quietly moved, Katerina circled 5 similar problems in her workbook and slid it over to me. I looked up at her in confusion. Didn't I say I understood? Resting her chin in her hand, she tapped her pen twice on the desk and smiled. Then start working on them. Show me with action that you really have mastered this type of problem. Staring at the complicated problems in the workbook, my head throbbed. I pouted my way through them, then handed the workbook back to Katerina for grading. There's a small mistake here, but overall it's fine. Watching her focus intently as she explained, a thought suddenly popped into my head. I want to pay you to be my tutor. She froze for a moment, saying nothing. Just as I started regretting the impulsive proposal, worrying that it might offend her pride, Katerina readily agreed. Violet, thank you. I actually really need the money. She swung her already packed bag over her shoulder. Under the sunlight, she reached out a hand to me, warm in color and in feeling. Then let's officially start tutoring tomorrow. You'd better pay attention in class. That night, I went to the stationery store and bought a pretty pink envelope, placing inside it the tutoring fee I'd prepared for the next 2 months. I felt like this gave it a sense of ceremony. Although Katerina had told me to pay her at the normal market rate for tutoring, I still couldn't help slipping in a small extra red envelope. The next day, when I brought the envelope to find Katerina, I discovered the classroom was empty. Directly across from it, on the school playground, someone had arranged roses into a giant heart shape. My eyelid twitched, a bad feeling creeping in. When I ran all the way to the playground, there was already a crowd of onlookers gathered. Standing on tiptoe, I saw Katerina in the very center, her expression unclear. In front of her stood Fabian and Romeo. A girl beside me sighed in envy at the sight. This is straight out of a drama. The school beauty being confessed to by both school heartthrobs at once. I wish I could experience something like that just once. Then someone in the crowd noticed me and shouted, "Whoa, Violet's here with a love letter. Now this is going to be good." Right after that, I don't know who it was, but someone shoved me forward. I stumbled a few steps and ended up right in the middle of everything. Every single pair of eyes turned toward me, and the pink envelope I was clutching tightly in my hand, with an expression that said they were ready to watch the drama unfold. Chapter 17. Fabian seemed to be confessing his feelings to Katerina. Katerina, you're the most outstanding girl I've ever met. My arrival cut off whatever he was about to say. Fabian glanced at me casually, but when his gaze landed on the pink envelope in my hand, he paused, then gave a mocking smile. With his hands in his pockets, he said coolly, "You're too ordinary. I don't have any feelings for you." For a moment my mind went blank. Was Fabian talking to me? I had no idea what he was thinking, so I decided to ignore him and walk straight toward Katerina. But as soon as I turned my head, I met Romeo's teasing gaze. He spread his hands, looking innocently at me. "Sorry, Vio. If my brother isn't interested in someone, then neither am I." Not interested. My steps faltered briefly, but I kept my expression neutral as I walked past them. Only then did it dawn on me. Fabian and Romeo must have thought the pink envelope was a love letter for them. It might sound absurd, but the truth was laughably obvious. I handed the pink envelope to Katerina. Meeting their stiff expressions, I tilted my head in puzzlement. "What on earth are you two being so full of yourselves about?" My reply set off a stir among the onlookers. Wait, did I see that right? Violet just gave a love letter to Katerina. This is that legendary trope. The love rival becoming the love interest. Honestly, that envelope doesn't look like a letter. It's too thick, like there's something else inside. But Violet does have a crush on Fabian. Anyone can see that. Can you guys stop making malicious assumptions every day? Why be so nasty to Violet when she hasn't done anything wrong? I had no interest in listening to other people's commentary. Instead, I locked my gaze on Fabian and Romeo, deciding that today, here and now, I'd lay it all out once and for all. In the past, whenever I faced you two, I did lower myself, and that's why you thought I was easy to push around. I gave a self-deprecating smile, my eyes cold as I looked at them. Fabian turned his head away uncomfortably, his tone impatient as he shot back. "Violet, so what exactly are you trying to say? Stop talking in riddles all the time. You came here at this exact moment just to stop me and my brother from confessing to Katerina, didn't you?" The rest of his sentence was cut off by a sharp cry of pain because I'd rolled up my sleeve and slapped him hard. Smack. What do I want to say? I gave a cold smile, each word crisp and loud. I want to say you're a fucking piece of trash and you don't deserve my feelings. Fabian clutched his face. Against his fair skin, the red imprint of my hand stood out starkly. He looked like he'd been completely stunned. Romeo, standing behind him, was equally shocked. Violet, how could you hit my brother? Oh right, I almost forgot about you. I raised my hand again and slapped Romeo, tilting my head with a smile. Your brother's trash. You're a little better, but not by much. After I said that, silence fell over the entire field. Then someone started clapping. Scattered applause broke out across the crowd, accompanied by a few odd voices. She's so cool. Nice. Watching her hit them was so satisfying. Katerina took off her earphones, closed her dictionary, and held it to her chest. Then, in a thoughtful gesture, she handed me a wet wipe. I took it carefully, wiping my hands, and gave a derisive laugh. Like whoever the hell you want except Katerina. And do me a favor. Don't come around acting like idiots in front of me. After all, force works both ways. When I slapped you, my hand hurt too. With that, I took Katerina's hand and left without looking back. Chapter 18. After that day, my name once again spread like wildfire across campus. But now, when people mentioned me, they no longer thought of me as the twin simp. Instead, I was a woman among women, the alpha among females. Some girls from lower grades even came to ask for my WeChat. I politely turned them all down. I thought that after such an open and ugly confrontation, Fabian and Romeo would feel humiliated and stay far away from me. To my surprise, they did the opposite. They started approaching me even more often, trying to patch things up and go back to how we were before. I regretted it. Regretted not slapping them a few more times that day. During PE class, the teacher announced free activity time. Feeling a bit thirsty, I went back to the classroom to grab my water bottle. I took a big gulp, and instantly noticed something was off about the taste. Frowning, I tried to spit it out, but the next moment everything went black. Chapter 19. When I came to, I realized I was tied up tight with rope. Standing in front of me were several street thug-looking guys. The moment they saw me awake, they all gave me malicious smiles. I tried to keep my voice steady. Who are you? The leader gave me a disdainful once-over and sneered. Who we are doesn't matter. What matters is, you pissed off someone you shouldn't have. Then, like they were performing in some bad drama, each of them took turns throwing out a threatening line, the kind of ridiculously over-the-top ones you'd hear from wannabe gangsters in TV shows. I just sat there baffled. Even my fear started to fade. After all, who would be scared of a group of guys who didn't even seem to meet the average IQ standard? Before they could do anything else to me, the door to the room was kicked open. Police officers swarmed in, quickly taking the thugs down with ease. The same guys who'd been full of swagger seconds ago instantly crumbled, begging for mercy without a shred of pride. And then Katerina walked in. She hurried over, untying me, then checking me over for injuries, her face full of worry. Violet, you're not hurt, are you? I hugged her tightly, feeling a little wronged, and shook my head. I'm fine. Did you call the police? Seeing I was unharmed, Katerina let out a slow breath of relief and explained. You didn't show up at the time we agreed for tutoring, so I went to your classroom to find you. But your classmates said they hadn't seen you since PE. I tried calling you but couldn't get through. So I called the police immediately. She patted my back in a soothing way, still a little shaken. Good thing you're okay. You don't know, the moment I realized you were missing, my heart skipped a beat. Those thugs might not have physically hurt me. They might have looked like total amateurs. But saying I wasn't scared at all would be a lie. Because what if the police had come just a bit later? I wasn't about to gamble my safety on finding out what would have happened next. Chapter 20. It only took a bit of intimidation from the police, and those thugs spilled everything. As I expected, the masterminds behind it were Fabian and Romeo. The gang leader admitted honestly, those two brats gave us a huge sum of money, told us by name to scare Violet from experimental senior high school. The plan was when she got scared enough, they'd show up to heroically save the damsel. The police officer who had been listening the whole time snorted. This is utter nonsense. They immediately had someone bring Fabian and Romeo to the station. At first, both of them refused to admit anything. But when the police pulled up the transfer records, Romeo cracked first. He claimed he just wanted to scare me, not actually hurt me. He even put on this pathetic victim act. Well, Violet's been ignoring me and my brother lately. Just the other day she even blocked all our contacts. Fabian wasn't as stupid as his brother. But aside from admitting it was wrong, he wouldn't confess to anything else, insisting they only wanted to give me a little fright. If in the beginning I had only thought of them as childish and self-centered, then now I saw them as both stupid and malicious, frauds of the highest order. I couldn't be bothered to waste words on those two. Once I finished giving my statement, I left under police escort and went home. In any case, Fabian and Romeo were both adults. They'd have to pay the price for their actions. Chapter 21. In the end, the police placed Fabian and Romeo in administrative detention for 7 days for the offense of picking quarrels and provoking trouble. During that time, Mr. and Mrs. Jean came to me, speaking softly, trying to get me to sign a settlement agreement. I refused outright. I don't know which helpful reporter leaked the story, but a day later, this ridiculously absurd kidnapping incident made it onto the local news. Fabian and Romeo were now thoroughly famous in City A. At the same time, several of the Jean family's companies also took a hit. Because the incident was so vile, the school, for the sake of its reputation, soon expelled both Fabian and Romeo. One day when I came home, I noticed a note posted on the front door of the villa across the street. Property transferred. It seemed they had already moved out. A new rumor was going around school as well. Apparently, no high school in the area was willing to accept Fabian or Romeo. Their parents, unwilling to endure further embarrassment, decided to send them abroad at their own expense. Violet, why are you zoning out again? Katerina, noticing my distraction, gave my cheek a light pinch in disapproval. I snapped back to attention immediately, apologizing with a good attitude. Forget it, true or false, what did it have to do with me anymore? There were just over 2 months left until the college entrance exams. Right now there was only one thing in my heart: studying. With that thought, I pushed all those irrelevant matters out of my mind and went back to my tutoring session with Katerina, just the two of us. Chapter 22. The college entrance exams were finally over. On the day Katerina and I went back to school to pack up our things, I suddenly found a letter in my locker. It looked like someone had secretly slipped it in. I'm sorry, Violet. Honestly, we don't even know how things got to this point. Just half a year ago, we were still walking to and from school together every day, eating in the cafeteria together. You might not believe this, but we really did treat you as a good friend, even had feelings for you that went beyond friendship. But we were too arrogant to confess them outright, so we could only hide behind belittling you to mask our emotions. Especially me. I was jealous of the way you always seemed to favor my brother. So I purposely used mocking words to draw your attention while venting my dissatisfaction. You're not ordinary at all, and the freckles on your face are especially cute. You're the best girl I've ever met. There was a long section after that, even with new contact information attached. Although there was no signature, I could guess with my toes who it was from. Can someone please tell me, why is it that even after those 2 pieces of trash went abroad, they still have to discuss me one last time at graduation? Do they really think their apology sounds sincere? Do they really think I'll be moved enough to forgive and forget? Katerina noticed me standing still and asked, puzzled, Violet, what's wrong? I slowly tore the envelope into tiny pieces, then turned back to her with a faint smile. Nothing, just found something. Not very important. After gathering all my books, I threw the shredded letter along with a few other old things into the trash can. Then I skipped over to Katerina's side, hooked my arm through hers and said brightly, come on, come on. I'm taking you to that amazing barbecue place. Katerina followed my steps obediently. For some reason I glanced back. A breeze blew past, carrying some of the shredded envelope out of the trash. A few pieces landed in the grass, then slowly disappeared from sight as if they had never existed in this world at all. But really, who cares about the inner thoughts of 2 rotten people? What mattered was that I was about to begin my brand new leading lady life.